Would you like to learn the basics of mobile game development? My name is Domen Rajterić and I will share with you my skills of mobile game development. This is my third class on Skillshare and this time we will learn how to start with game development for mobile market. I will show you how to set up user interface for mobile screens, how to set up maps and players, how to set up camera and background. We will also discover how to make a very popular parallax effect. We will learn how to trigger transitions between windows. We will be working with colliders and rigid bodies. I will show you how to create and use prefabs. And of course, there will be coding. Don't be worried if you are a beginner. This class is suitable for all skill levels. What are you waiting for? Start learning today, so tomorrow you will be working on your dreams. All of the software used in this class is available for free. We will use Unity 2019 for development and Visual Studio for coding, and that is all you need. During the class we will create a simple mini game and it will be your job to upgrade this game to the next level. Join my class, learn the basics and share your project with other students. I'm looking forward to see you in my class. Hello again and thank you for choosing my class. My name is Domen Rajterić and today I will share with you my skills on mobile game development. I believe that you will learn some valuable lessons today. We will cover a lot of topics. We will start with how to prepare the project, learn how to import the assets in the project. We will discover how to set up the player and the background. We will be building a level, then continue with class project, or actually you will continue with a class project. And I hope that at the end a lot of you will share your own product, your own game with other students on this class. We will start with preparation of the game. As you can see, I have created a new empty project. It's a 2D project and right now it's empty. All we have is a main camera. And the first thing I want to show you is how to import the assets in the project. So let's open up Asset Store. The first pack we will be using is Joystick pack, because in this game I would like to show you how to use a joystick, a virtual joystick on the screen. So let's search for the Joystick pack. Just type in Joystick pack and we will be using this Joystick pack from Phenerax Studios. Just hit import button and again. And as you can see in the assets folder, we now have a joystick pack. The next one we need is Pixel Fantasy Caves. So if you don't like this one, you can use anything you want. You can search for the platform assets and you can find a lot of good options, but I will use this for this tutorial. Again, hit import, and after a few seconds you will see a new assets folder down there. So we have now Pixel Fantasy Caves and the last one we need is the spaceship character. So let's search for spaceship sprites, hit enter, and I'm gonna use these simple spaceships from 3D Gyps. Hit import, again import. So now we have imported all the assets we need and we can continue with building our game. First, I would like to use a joystick from this joystick pack, but to do this we need, of course, placeholder for user interface elements, and for that we will use an object called canvas. So let's go in the hierarchy, right click, go under the user interface and search for canvas. It's down there. So let's double click on the canvas to focus on the canvas. And now we can search for the joystick in the joystick pack. So open up the folder, go under the prefabs. Prefab is just an object that you can use many times in your game. It has pre-programmed all of the inspector elements. I will show you later how to create one. Let's drag this fixed joystick under the canvas like that, and I will hide this event system also in the canvas element. So you can see right now we have our joystick. If we hit play button, we can see that this joystick is actually already set up, it's working. So let's stop the game. I would like to change the position of this joystick to 200 and position Y also 200. Now I would like to add two buttons, one for shooting and the second one for gas or throttle, or however you would like to call it. So again, we will be using canvas to hold our buttons. Right click on the canvas, and under the UI we search for button, and you can see we have now our button. Let's change the size. Let's try with 100 by 100. I would like to change the source image, and I will use this knob, maybe a little bit bigger. Let's try 150 by 150. That looks better. So now if we go under the button, let's extend it, and we will find a text element, and I will change the text from button to just A. This will be our A button. I will change the font style from normal to bold, and let's increase the font to, let's say, 50, or we can try 64. Yes. I will rename this button gas, or let's just simply call it go. And now if I click on the button, duplicate, so we get another button, and I will change the name of this button to shoot. So we have two buttons. Let's separate them. Let's place the shoot button somewhere here, and the go button somewhere here. We can of course change it later, and I will change the text of the shoot button to B. Great. So now we have two buttons, and if I change from scene view to game view, this will be the view that our players will get on the phone screen. So let's go back to scene, and now we can continue. We have a basic user interface. You can add as many buttons you want. You can add a text element or use two joysticks instead, but for our game this will be enough. So now we have prepared the project, and we can continue with actually building the game. And I would first like to start with setting up the player. So let's hide these user interface elements, and let's create a new player. I will focus on the main camera because this is our game view, and if I double click on the canvas, this is our user interface view. It's separated from the game view. So go back to main camera, and now we will use something from the spaceship sprites. Again, we will use a prefab which comes with this assets folder, and I would like to use, let's say, spaceship 7. Let's try this out. This is our spaceship. If I hit the play button, you can see that this spaceship already has animations built in, and that's a good thing with prefabs, because you can pre-program the animations, the properties, and so on, and that's why we are using so much of the prefabs, because they are very useful and you can save a lot of time with them. And of course I will show you later how to create your own prefabs. But for now, let's stop this game and let's continue with setting up our player. The first thing I want to do is, of course, to change the name from Spaceship 7 to simply Player. The first thing I want to set up is order in layer. I want to increase it. Later you will see why, because we will have many elements on the screen and you don't want, let's say, player to be behind the background sprites or something like that. You want our player to be in front of the background. So if I set order in layer for the player, let's say 5, we need to set later, when we will be setting a background, or lower order in layer for the backgrounds, let's say 4, 3, 2, 1 or 0. So 5, we won't be changing anything in the animator. We can also hide the sprite renderer, but, or actually no, I want to flip my player upside down like this, and I want to change the scale from 3 to, let's say, 2 by 2. That's better. I don't want my player to be too big. And now I can actually start with building our player. That's just the sprite, and now we can add a new component. Eventually we want to add a moving script to this player. So let's begin with the first component we need to move our player around, and this one is called rigid body 2D. This will add a physics elements to our player, like mass, like scale, gravity scale, and so on. And I want my gravity scale to be 0, because we are simulating the space conditions. I want my game to have 0 gravity, but if you want to add a more gravity to your player, you can do it under the gravity scale. Of course, you can change the mass and so on. And I will change the collision detection from discrete to continuous, because I want to detect for possible collisions all the time. So that's the rigid body component. The next one is collider, and let's use a circle collider for this player. So circle collider 2D, and right away you can see a new green circle around the player, and this is the collider. That's called collider. This serves to detect the collisions with other elements on the screen, let's say with the enemies, with the coin, with the environment. And of course you can have more colliders on the player. If you have a player which has some let's say complex shapes, you can add more colliders, but for our purpose one collider will be enough. But we will edit it a little bit, so let's hit edit collider, and I will change the size. I don't want my collider to be too big, because I don't want to, let's say, detect collisions when I'm not hitting anything. So let's something like this, or we can actually use 2 colliders with this player. So let's change the offset of this collider. I want to move it a little bit up, and let's change the size again, something like this. So this will be for our front part of the ship, and let's add a new collider. This time we can use, let's say, box collider 2D, and we can use this collider for the bottom part of the player. Let's something like that, and let's change the signs from the sides. Let's edit a circle collider a little bit more and offset. So that's, for now it will be okay. When you are creating, let's say, a serious game which you want to publish, of course you want your colliders to be more precise, but for now this is quite enough, and we can continue. So now we have two colliders which will serve to detect the collisions with other objects. So now we have rigid body and we have colliders. Now we can add another component which will be really important for us, because it's a script that will move our player around, and we will finally write some code. So let's add a new component. I will name this component move. You can name it movement, move, go, whatever you like. I will name it move. New script, create an add, and after a few seconds you should see a new script here. Meanwhile, I can hide this. And let's always make sure that we are keeping our project organized. We can create a new assets folder, and I will use this folder to hold all of my scripts. So let's name it scripts, and let's move our first script in the new folder. So choose player again and double click on the move element. This will open our new script in the Visual Studio, which will be used to write code for our game. And the first script we are writing is, of course, a move script for our player. Here we will have all the logic that goes in the player movement, and let's begin with importing a new library. Let's write down using Unity Engine, and we need user interface library. Now we can continue with writing a few variables that we need in this script. So the first one will be public float, and I will name this one rotation speed, and let's try with value, let's say 5. The next one is again public float, and let's say thrust force. This will be the force that we will be adding to our player when we want to move it in the certain direction. Let's make it 10. We are making both of these variables public, which means that if I later want to change the values of them, I can do it in the Unity. I don't need to open up the Visual Studio. That's why we are using public. Next one is again public, but this time is of type joystick. And let's name it simply joystick. This variable will serve as a connection between our joystick in the game and this script. Now we need a float without public, and let's name the first one rotation X and the second one rotation Y. And the last one is of type rigid body, and I will name it RB. So those are all the variables we need. Now we can continue with our start function, which is called before the first frame update. So let's say at the beginning of the game. And the only thing I want to do in the start function is to reference our RB with the rigid body of our player. So rb is equal to get component of our player, and we are looking for the rigid body component. And that's all we got to do in the start function. Let's continue with the update function, which is called once per frame, and we will use this function to detect user input. And for the user input we are using our joystick. This is the way that user can communicate with this script. So I want to use this joystick to detect the rotation of our player. I want to know the rotation of the joystick and then translate this rotation to our player. So let's gather some information from the joystick. We need to use if statement. So if we want to make sure that the value of our joystick is not 0, so joystick dot horizontal value is not equal to 0, or joystick dot vertical is not equal to 0, then we can assign values to our rotation x and rotation y. And I see that I made a grammar mistake, rotation. So let's use rotation x, which is equal to joystick dot horizontal, and I want to multiply this value with rotation speed, and the same goes for the rotation y. So rotation y is equal to joystick, but this time we need a vertical value, and again I want to multiply this value with the rotation speed. Or maybe if you want to try this game on the computer, you need to use some input from the keyboard or the mouse. And let's do this, because for me personally it's easier to test the game on the computer. So let's write down another if statement. So if input dot get button down, let's use jump button, which is space button in the Unity, and we can here execute some code. I want to call a new method here. I will declare a public void and I will call it trust. And now I can call this method in the if statement. So if I later press the space button, I will call the trust method on the computer. And of course, for the mobile side of the game, we need to connect the user interface button on the screen with this method, which we will be doing later. So let's write the logic in the trust method. It will be quite simple. We just need to declare a new vector2. I will call it force, and it will simply have a value of transform.up, which is, let's say, a forward direction of our player. So this will send our player in the forward direction, and I want to multiply this value with our trust force. And now when we have a new vector2 declared, we can use it. And for that we need to use our rigid body, so rb dot add force, and the force we are adding is called simply force. That's all for the trust method. So now we have a way to send our player in the forward direction, and the second and the last thing we need to do is to use a fixed update method, because we need a way to rotate our player, and for that we need to use a little bit of math, but don't worry, it's just one line of code. So to rotate our player we need to use the transform component of the player. So transform dot Euler angles is equal to, and now we need to declare a new vector3, which is transform dot Euler angles dot x Then we need to use transform dot Euler angles dot y, and now we need to use some of the math. So math dot atom 2. Let's use the rotation x, which we declared earlier, and rotation y. And let's multiply this with math f dot radians to degrees. And if I'm correct, that's all we need to do for the move script. So make sure that you save the script, and let's return to the Unity. And after a few seconds you should see a new updated script here. We need to connect our joystick to this script. So let's find the joystick. Here it is, fix the joystick and just drag it to the player. So we have now a way to rotate the player from the mobile phone, but we don't have a connection between the go button and our thrust method in the script. So select the go button under the canvas. If you go down in the inspector, you will see a window called onClick, which is now empty, but let's add a new method. Here we can assign an object from which we want to, let's say, call a certain function. So if I want to call a function on the player, I will just drag in the player and I will go in the move script and search for the thrust method. If now I hit the play button, we should have our player moving around, and if I hit the go button, the A button, we see our player moving in a gravity-free space. So now we have a player and we have a fully working movement script, and I would like to show you how to make, because right now we can see that our camera stays at one place and we can actually go with player off the screen, and we don't want that. We want our camera to follow the player. Go under the window and under the package manager we need to find package called Cinemachine. So let's install the Cinemachine. And now if I go under the hierarchy, right click on the empty space, we can see a new slot here called Cinemachine, and what we want to create is a new virtual camera. This camera, how to say it, it will give the instructions to the main camera on how to follow the player and so on. I will rename this one to virtual camera, and let's drag it under the main camera. With virtual camera selected, go under the inspector and you will see a slot called follow under the Cinemachine virtual camera, and we can there specify which object we want to follow, and of course we want to follow our player. So let's drag in the player, and that's it. That's how you set up the camera to follow up the player. Of course you can change the settings of this camera on how to follow the player, but for now that's good enough. And if I try it, you will see that our player won't go off the camera again, even if we are moving around. Great. So one thing I want to change with my camera is this background. I don't like this blue one, so this is better. Let's continue with the ability to shoot with our player. I would like my player to shoot around, and that's quite simple to do. first thing we need is a bullet, of course. So let's go under the scene and create a new empty object. Let's call it bullet. We need to set it up because right now it's an empty object. Let's change the location, add a component. The first one we need is a sprite renderer. Let's change the sprite from none to let's say nop. Nop will be okay. Let's change the size. Let's scale it up 2 by 2. I want to change the color from this white to, let's say, a blue. So yes, this will be our bullet. Of course, I want to change order in layer. Don't forget that. Let's say 5. And that's all for the renderer. The next thing we need is circle collider. We need our bullet to collide with other objects. We have a circle collider. Let's say that we are satisfied. I want to set it to be a trigger because I don't want my bullet to bounce around. I just want to hit the object and disappear. So we have a circle collider. We need again a rigid body to move the bullet around. Let's extend it. I want my bullet to have a gravity scale of 0, and I want to change collision detection to continuous. And that's all for the rigid body. And of course, the last thing our bullet needs is of course a script. I will call this script bullet, new script, create a net. We have a new bullet here. So to keep the project organized, I will drag this new script to the folder with scripts. And again, choose the bullet, hit the script to open it up in the Visual Studio. And for the bullet, we want to specify the speed, and we need to connect the rigid body of our bullet to this script. And that's all for the variables we need. So let's declare public float for the speed, and let's set it to 10. You can change it later or in the code or in the Unity. And of course we need a rigid body 2D. I will again call it RB. In the start method we will connect our component with this script. So RB is equal to get component, and the component we want is of course rigid body 2D from the bullet prefab. Yes, this bullet will be a prefab, and I believe this will be the only prefab we will create today. And now in the start method we can right away add a velocity to this bullet, because when we shoot a bullet we want to have a velocity on the bullet from the start. So rb.velocity, and we want to send it in the forward direction, which is in the 2D space transform dot up, and let's multiply this by speed. That's for the start method. We will not use this update method here, but we will create a new one called onTriggerEnter2D. So when the bullet will collide with other object, this method will be called on the bullet. So first I would like to check if the bullet is colliding with the player, because if he's colliding with the player we don't want anything to happen. So let's say if, and we can use this collision from the method. So if collision dot name is equal to player, what I want to do, I want to return. I don't want anything to happen, but if it's not the player, I want to destroy the object, the bullet object. So when the bullet will hit other object but not the player, it will destroy itself. And that's for the bullet script for now. So let's go back to Unity. Now with the script written, we have almost finished the bullet. The last thing I want to do is I want to add a tag to this bullet. So add tag, let's create a new tag and I will call it bullet. Simple, save. So now we have one tag. Let's again select the bullet and we can now set the tag to bullet. And that's all for the bullet element. Now I want to make a prefab from this bullet because we will be using bullets a lot in this game and I want to be able to instantiate this bullet anytime I want in the game. So how you make a prefab? It's really simple. You just select the let's say the object in the hierarchy and you drag it down in the assets folder. And you can see now we have created a new prefab. This blue icon means that this bullet is in fact a prefab. So to keep this project organized, I will create a new map, a new folder, and I will call it prefabs. So let's select this prefab and drag it in the new folder. So we have now new folders with prefabs and scripts. And for that reason we can now delete this bullet and we will instantiate the bullets later in the scripts. So we have set up the player, we have set up the bullet. Of course, now let's continue with the player and his ability to shoot. Go under the player and we will separate the shooting ability from the move script. I will create a new script and let's name it simply shoot. New script, create an add. There you go, we have a new script. First let's drag the new script under the scripts folder and now we can open up the shoot script in the Visual Studio, double click. So the shoot script will be really simple for us. We need just one variable. This one will be public game object and I will call it bullet prefab because we need a reference from our bullet prefab which we have created earlier to this script. So we have public game object bullet prefab. I don't need this start method. I just want to create a new method called something like fire or shoot, but we can't name it the same as this class is called, so I will name it, let's say, fire, and that's it. So I want to make this method public because we need to connect it with the user interface button on the screen, and for that reason this method needs to be public. And there's only one line of code here. When I call this function, so when I press the fire button, I want to instantiate the bullet. We want to call the bullet prefab, and let's set the starting location to transform.position. This will be the position of our player, and transform.rotation. And that's all for the fire method. And as we did with the move script, I want also to be able to test this fire method on the keyboard, on the computer. So let's, in the update method, write down a new if statement. If input dot, let's say, get key down, and let's use for the shooting, let's say F. I want to call the fire method. So we can now go back to Unity, and under the player you will see now we need to connect the bullet prefab to this script. Let's select the prefab and drag it under the shoot script. So now we have a way to call the fire method from the keyboard, and we shouldn't forget the button on the screen. So let's select the shoot button, and now we know how to do it. On click event, and again we need to drag in the player, but this time we need a method from the shoot script. So let's test this out if everything works fine. So let's press the button, and yes, we are indeed shooting the bullet. But I see one problem, and that is that our player is at order in layer, I think 5, yes, and I want my bullet to be behind the player all the time, so I will set it to 4, like that. So we have now a way to move the player and a way to shoot with our player, and we can continue with creating a map. So now we can continue with building the map, and for that I would like to show you how to use a tile map system in the Unity. So if I go under the hierarchy, let's right click on the empty space, and under the 2D object let's select tile map. We can see that we get a new grid object, and there we have a new grid which will be a base for our map, and if I extend it you will see our tile map for the environment elements. So if I want to create a level with tile map, I of course need a tile palette. Tile palette can be created under the tile palette window. Create new palette, and I will just name it new palette and hit create button. So creating a map can be quite a time consuming. First thing we need is to add tiles or sprites to this palette, and for that reason we have earlier imported the Pixel Fantasy Caves pack from the asset store. So let's extend this Pixel Fantasy Caves, and if you go under the sliced folder you will see that we have an element called mainLev build. So let's drag this one to the palette. This will create a new palette which can be then used to paint or create a new map. This can take quite a few minutes to complete if you have a lot of tiles, so I will fast forward to the end. So our palette is created, and now I will extend it a little bit so we can see all the elements, and we can use all of these elements to paint our environment to create the new map. For example, I can use these blocks, and let's say I will place them there. Don't make fun of my artistic skills. This is not my strong point, but I just want to show you how to use tile palette, tile map to create a new level. The best way to learn it is of course to try it yourself. You will see that it's quite easy once you get used to it. You just need time. You need to take time to build the map. From the tile palette you can, let's say, use one element, and you can paint one element at a time, or you can use the entire block of elements and paint them on the map. I will leave this part of the course to you. I want for each of you to build your map as you like it. Maybe you are using a different asset pack, which is also cool. So I will skip forward. I will paint the map, you do the same, and see you in a few minutes. So I have built a simple map, a really small map. I hope you have built a bigger map, or you can do it later. But for this class, for this course, it will be enough. And I would like to continue. So now we have a simple tile map, and we want to be able to detect the collisions between the player and this tile map, and of course we can do it. We need to go back in the inspector view and let's select the tile map, and we will add a tile map collider to our map, tile map collider 2D, and now we can detect the collisions between our player and the environment. So let's say that I want my player to die, to destroy when he hits the map. I will go under the player and I will add a new component, a new script, and I will just call it colliders. If you have a better name, use it, but for me this will be just good. So let's double click on the script, and when we have a new script opened up in Visual Studio, we will delete all of the methods and we will just type in on collision enter 2D. We will use this method, and for now what I want to do is just to reload the scene when I hit the map. So to reload or load another scene, we need to use another library. This time we need Unity engine.scene management, and now we can use scene manager.load scene, and we want to reload the existing scene. So scene manager dot get active scene dot build index of this scene, and that's all for this script. Now if I go back to Unity, and if we want to try this out, we can hit the play button. Let's try this out. So I hit the scene, I hit the map, and we are reloading the map. We have now one tile map. I want to have another tile map for, let's say, a hidden path or tile map that can be removable by the game. So I will go under the grid, I will select to the object, and I will hit tile map. Let's rename this to, let's say, obstacle, and I want to create some obstacle here that our player will need to destroy in order to come to the end of the game. So let's add some environment elements to this. Let's use this one and make sure that we are using the obstacle tile map, and let's paint here an obstacle. Go under the inspector and let's change the color of this tile map to something like this to show the player that this element is removable, it can be destroyed, something like that. And I want to make sure that this tile map is showing behind the original tile map. So let's say that this tile map has order and layer of 1, and we can leave the obstacle at 0. So let's add a script to this obstacle, add component, call it obstacle, new script, and create and add. Okay, double click on the obstacle, and when we get a new script opened, we can delete both of the method start and update. Again, we will use Unity engine.scene management. First, we want to use onTriggerEnter2D method, and we need to check with who we are colliding with. So if collision.compare tag, and we have added a tag to our bullet called bullet, and if we are colliding with the bullet, we want our obstacle to be removed. So destroy.gameObject. But if not, so if we are colliding with the player, then we want to again reload the scene like we did before. So scene management.load scene, scene manager, get active scene dot build index, and that's it. That's for the obstacle. We can now go back to Unity. Of course, we shouldn't forget to add a collider to this obstacle tile map, so tile map collider 2D, and I think that should work fine for the player and for the game. Let's try this out. So if I shoot in the obstacle, it disappears. Great. I showed you how to use a tile palette and how to build a map using a tile map, and I would like to continue with adding a background to this game, because right now it's quite boring. And for that I would also like to show you how to add a parallax effect, which is quite popular in modern games. I will show you how to add it, how to program it. It's not that hard, and you can later reuse this method in your game. First, I will organize this folder because right now it's a mess. I will move all of these objects to one of the maps. So let's select all of them. Okay, now we have a project organized again. Let's continue with the background. We will add a background element to the main camera. So under the main camera we will create a new empty object. Let's call it simply background, and we will use this element to add the background to the game. As I said, I will show you how to make a parallax effect in the game. Let's use background assets from the Pixel Fantasy Caves. So we will be using this background 1, 2, 3 for the parallax effect. Let's drag all of them under the background element. Background 2, 3. Like this. Select all of them. Change the location to be in the center. And I will change the scale of it to 1.9 and let's say 2.1. This should be okay. And yes, we need to change order in layer. So background 1 is at -2, background 2 is -1, and background 3 is 0. So we have background set up, and what I want to do next, to make it easier to see, I will for now deactivate the grid like this. So let's select all of them and duplicate them 2 times. Now I want to move first 3 to the left and the second 3 to the right, like this. And now I will select background 1, 1 and background 1, 2 and drag it under the background 1. The same thing with background 2, the first copy and the second copy, and I will drag them under the background 2, and again for the background 3 under the great. Select all of the backgrounds and add a component, new script, change the name to background and create and add. So double click on the background. Now we first need to declare a new variables. We need 2 float variables. One will be length and the second one will be start position. Then we need to reference our camera, so GameObject.cam, and we will make a public float called, let's say, parallax effect. Let's begin with the start method. Let's use the start position variable and set the transform.position.x, and let's use the length, get component. We need component called sprite renderer, and we need to get the size of x bound. That's for the start method. Everything else will be written in the fixed update method. First, we need to declare two new floats. So float, let's name it temp, is equal to cam dot transform dot position dot x, and I want to multiply this with 1 minus parallax effect. And the second float will be called, let's say, distance, and for that let's use cam dot transform dot position dot x and multiply it with parallax effect. That's for the variables. Now let's go under transform dot position is new vector 3. Let's use the start position and add a distance. We need to use transform dot position y and transform dot position z, but we are only changing the x position of the camera. So if temp is greater than start position plus length, then we want to do this start position plus equals length. Else, if temp is smaller than start position minus length, what we want to do is start position minus equals length. And that's for the script of the parallax effect. Let's go back to the background. Now let's select the first group, or actually let's select all of them, and first we need to reference the camera. And now we can set the effect for the background. So I will use parallax effect 1 on the background 3. Let's use, let's say, 0.5 on the 2 and 0 on the background 1. And now if we try this out, of course we need to set up the grid. It's great. And now hit the play button. Let's try. Okay, this is working. Now we need to find out why we are not seeing the obstacle element. Of course, I will change the order layer to 1 and of tile map to 2. Great. So we have background setup, we have map, we have player, we have camera setup. I showed you how to use the user interface elements, and to finish this off, let's make a way to finish the level, to finish the game. And I want to add here a little square that will detect the player and it will load the next level, level 2. So I will use a simple square from the assets, go under the assets, create the sprites and choose the square. Hit enter, drag this square to the scene, make sure that it is appearing behind the first tile map. So if our tile map is ordered in layer 2, we need to make sure that our square is 1, and I will change the size, something like that. Let's change the color, let's change the alpha, that's great. And I will add a component, a new script to this square called finish, new script, create an add, and meanwhile I can rename this to finish. So let's open up this finish script in the Visual Studio, and what I want to do, I want to use again scene management library, so Unity Engine dot scene management. And we don't need these two methods, of course we need just on trigger enter 2D. And what we want to do is to use again scene manager dot load scene manager dot get active scene dot build index, like that. And this should load the next scene of this game, let's say level 2. Let's try this out if everything works fine. So I start the game, I hit fire, and let's go to this finish line. So now when I will get there. Of course nothing happens because I forgot to add a box collider to this finish, let's say finish square, and I want it to be a trigger. And now let's try it again. So when we reached the finish square, we get back to the existing scene because I forgot in the script to add something at the end of this line, and this is +1. So the next scene in the build, and now for the final time everything should work as it's meant to be. So let's rush to the finish line, and again nothing happened because we have reached the scene, I mean the finish line, but the scene number 2 couldn't be loaded because we don't have one. So that's for the class project. I would like you to build a new level, a new scene, maybe a bigger one than this, and I want you to create maybe a new obstacles, maybe an enemy, or maybe a new challenge that you came up with. So now you are probably wondering how to test the game on the phone, and it's quite simple in Unity. All you got to do is to download the Unity Remote 5 application on App Store or on Google Play. This is the interface of the application. So now if I want to test my game on the phone, I need to first connect the phone with cable to the computer, to the Unity, and then when the application is opened, we can go to Unity and let's go under the Edit, Project Settings, and under the editor select your device. And now if I hit the play button, after a few seconds you should see the game running on your phone, and it should work like we designed it to work. So those are the basics, really basics of mobile game development, and now it's up to you to continue from there. You can create, if you continue with the project we have created, you can create new levels, new scenes, you can add a new functionality to the game, you can add new enemies, new obstacles, and so on, so on. It's really up to you. But for the class project, I would like you to create a new level. So we have created this finish line, finish square, and I would like you to do a transition from our game, from our scene to your new scene, actually to level 2. I would be really happy if you share your project with other students. For now, that's all. I'm very thankful for opportunity to teach you, and I hope I see you in the next class. Peace.